Hello, hockey fans, and welcome back to another episode of High Flying, the podcast made for the fans.
By the fans.
As always, my name is Nolan, and I am here with my lovely co-host Jude. And we apologize for not having a couple weeks of hockey content there, but thank you to Jude's lovely girlfriend Steph for filling in the gap. It is muchly attributed to Jude working his way up to being an international rock star, and he can tell you more about that.
All right. I take regional at this point. But yeah, it was good. We got to use the first of our prizes from the Battle of the Bands victory. We went in the studio for a couple days, Ear Art Studios in North Delta. Shout out Tim Newhouse, he's the owner, and did the producing on it. But it was really cool. I'd never been in a, or I guess I should say I've never recorded in like a proper studio environment. So we went in there on last Saturday, I guess. Set up pretty quickly. We did like 7 or 8 takes, I think, of the song that we chose to record first. And yeah, from there, with the performances were, I was pretty happy we were able to do it live. There is some comping that went on in the production, but for the most part, it's live. So yeah, we're just in the process of getting it mixed. I think I want to chuck maybe like a 12 string acoustic on there, fill it out. But yeah, so then it's just content and all the stuff that's super fun that I love to do. And then yeah, we'll get it out. So
There we go. We got some new music coming soon from three Nines Fine. And if you're a fan of them, I don't know if there's still tickets left available, maybe you know, but you guys have a festival you are playing coming up in September.
yeah, I'm lucky enough to get offered a slot at this year's Barnside Harvest Fest, which is pretty cool. They had over 900 applicants this year from all around the world to play it. So that was another advent of our Battle of the Bands win, which turned out to be very worth it. We signed up the day before that competition application closed and ended up getting in. So pretty excited for that. I believe we're playing Saturday at 3:30, do at Cadillac Stage. So should be pretty fun. I know Nolan's gonna be there.
I will be there so you can hang out with me and the high flying crew. You can hang out with Jude before and after, I would imagine. Most likely after, he'll be busy stretching the fingers, making sure he doesn't get a finger cramp beforehand. Lots of good artists that day too. So even if you're not familiar with Three Nines Fine, I encourage you to come early and check it out. But Daniel Wesley is that day. Local dude, I think he's from Langley. Washboard Union, I've seen them both. They're both awesome. Big Wreck and Smash Mouth they're playing. I've never seen either of those. So it's a whole day of music, and you can kick it off with Three Nines Fine.
Hell yeah, pretty stoked for that one. Should be cool. I'm hoping we'll have 2 songs out by the time that we're doing Harvest Fest. So be on the lookout.
Dude, we gotta be getting an album announcement then, you know what I'm saying?
Probably either like December-ish this year or early 2027. I think the album will be coming out. You got to stretch it out, you know. It's a unfortunately it's a singles market these days. So,
That's right. Build the suspense, you
yeah,
know.
exactly.
Speaking of building suspense, because we didn't do an episode previously, we did not do a Stanley Cup playoff preview. Now, we didn't do one last year either. If you've been with us from the beginning, this podcast started in round two of the playoffs. We are in round one of the playoffs, and the exciting thing about this is I know I have kind of made my predictions known to people. Jude has not, so I have no clue where his head was at going into the playoffs. I have no clue how it's looking for him. So what we're going to do today, I think, if Jude and Ethan are cool with it, we can just recap the playoffs so far and kind of see where it sits with what we thought would happen, what hasn't gone our way, and any shocks, and just give you a full detailed analysis from two of the greatest hockey minds in modern media.
Real. No arguing there.
What division would you like to start with, my friend?
Let's keep it close to home. Let's do the Pacific, or I guess, yeah, yeah, Pacific.
Okay, Pacific Division. Um, I'll just tell you first who I had in both these series. It is documented. It is in our group chats, and I also have a hockey pool on ESPN Fantasy. Um, and I had Anaheim in Utah winning these series, and I think that's trending in my direction so far. Um,
Yeah.
were you running the same course or no?
Um, I think I think I expected the Oilers to win just based on recent history and it being Anaheim's first time in the playoffs in a long time. I didn't think it would be, a blowout or a quick series because I think having Joel Quenneville as their coach kind of helps out on the experience end, even though they do have a lot of young guys and they've got some playoff veterans. I mean, Truba and Kreider and Kaloran's a multiple time Cup champion, so they've got enough experience in that room. But I think the star power of the Oilers, I'd be a little shocked if they went down round one. But seeing how things have unfolded, I think the recency bias is leaving me quick because Edmonton's goaltending is very interesting. Kind of shocking that they're still in the situation they're in after, 10 years of McDavid, still haven't been able to secure that goalie spot. But yeah, Anaheim looks pretty good, man. Cutter Gauthier and Leo Carlson, those guys are going to be dominating the Pacific for a while. So, and then Vegas, Utah.
Well, I don't want to go on to that with just yet, unless
All
you
right,
want
all
to
right.
unless you want to just say who you predicted, and then we dial back more deeper into Edmonton, Anaheim. What do you want to do? You want to just say who you
Um,
predicted for Vegas, Utah, and then we can
yeah,
do a bit of a deep dive?
sure. I kind of boring, but I predicted Vegas kind of again, just with Utah being their first time making it, and a lot of those guys were coming from Arizona, where there was not an expansive history of playoff success. So I guess I was riding with the experience in the Pacific.
Fair enough, fair enough. Just share my thoughts on Edmonton, Anaheim. Going a little bit deeper analysis in there. First of all, you mentioned Edmonton's goaltending, and the big reason actually I didn't pick Edmonton is was because of a conversation me and you had around free agency of this past off season. We were talking about the Florida Panthers and when they re-signs several players, including Brad Marchand. We talked about how they're kind of set up for a dynasty run, but what may keep them out is just, to use your words, the battle of attrition. That's a lot of hockey they've played over the past uh, 3 year seasons or so, and we saw that take its toll with injuries on the Florida Panthers. They didn't even make the playoffs. So going into this, I was kind of already not leaning Edmonton because I'm like, wow, this is a beat up Edmonton team because in the last 2 seasons they played just as much hockey as the Panthers and they lost. Um,
Yeah.
and and then you look at their goaltending. They brought in Connor Ingram, and I thought Connor Ingram was going to be much better than he was both in the regular season and in the playoffs so far. I usually do very well with goaltending. My bad. I'll eat that one. I was wrong. Connor Ingram sucks. That being said, one thing with the Edmonton Oilers is statistically, I believe I saw this. I checked 2 days ago, so I don't know if it's changed now. But statistically, the Edmonton Oilers have had the worst goaltending in these playoffs, and they went to the Cup Finals with the worst goaltending in the playoffs. A little while ago. Maybe not as bad as Winnipeg. There's no playoff hellebuck to make the Oilers goalies look better. But that's a recipe that has to change for success. However, they've generally been able to outscore their opponents. On the Anaheim side, what I like about it is aside from Troy Terry, who doesn't know how to throw a hit in the regular season, going into these playoffs, physicality is generally a big concept over a 7 game series, and that Anaheim back end is mean. They are big. They play very, very physical in the corners, and just traditionally, I think Anaheim has a roster build of a more stable playoff team. Do I think Anaheim's winning a cup this year? No, I do not. But I did have them getting past the Edmonton Oilers.
Fair. I can see that. They're definitely having Trouba and Gudis on the same defensive unit is rather daunting for anybody going against them, especially in a playoff series. Did you see that clear in the crease video where they were talking about Troy Terry not throwing a single hit the entire regular season? Is that where
Yes,
you
yeah,
saw
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I
Okay, yeah.
did see that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dude,
That's why,
that's
yeah, I brought it up. Because you do need a little bit of physicality. Now, to be fair, I'm going to be honest with everyone. There's only so much time in a day. I can only pick and choose what games to watch. And Anaheim and Edmonton are usually have been on as the same time as another game. So I've not watched anything from this series yet. I've only looked at the statistics afterwards. So I do not know if Troy Terry has upped his physical play in the playoffs.
yeah, I'm of two minds when it comes to that sort of stuff. If Troy Terry was, like a middle six winger who chips in like 30, 35 points a year and wasn't hitting anything, I would be uh a little bit more concerned with that. But seeing that he's, an absolute skill guy, top line player, I think he can get away with it. And there's other guys on the team that can sort of carry that load. But I think it's impressive and kind of embarrassing at the same time, not throwing a single hit. Like what?
I think it's all, I'd say it's more embarrassing. And I do think you can get away with it, but just think of the boost that would do in a locker room if he started running around for the playoffs. Like in terms of skill guys that throw the body around, I think the epitome of that is Alex Ovechkin. And I just remember his first career shift in the NHL probably should have got a charging penalty. He just goes end to end. I think it was against Columbus. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, he just goes end to end and absolutely dummies a guy in behind the goal line. Probably should have been a charging penalty. But you expect that from a guy like Ovechkin. But I'm just thinking if Troy Terry can channel his inner physicality, what a boost that would do to a bench. Imagine you're in a tight game, and it doesn't even have to be on a star player, but Troy Terry just lines up. I don't know, Jake Wallman when there's a puck in the corner and decks him. And then you're on the bench, you're going, holy shit, that was incredible. I didn't know this guy could hit. He hasn't done it all season. Just I think could be a good boost to the series.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's one thing I've been pretty stoked about with these playoffs so far is a lot of the series have seems like a little bit of extra fire this year, maybe with some of the more traditional rivalries being played out, and some recent one too. I mean, Tampa Montreal has been pretty aggressive. I guess that's stemming from the finals a number of years ago. But yeah, that's been pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah. Other thing too, just a quick shout out to Lukáš Dostal. He looked good in the Olympics for Czechia. He's looking good now. Um, do you want to roll on to Utah Vegas?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Oh, you
I
want me to give my
I
thoughts?
can go.
Okay, I can
No,
go. So
either or.
this
I
is
can go. You can go. Either or.
I'll do. So this is a series kind of like you're saying with Edmonton. I have not had any chances to watch this game with or this series with my schedule being the way it is. I've heard it's kind of been a sneaky banger actually. Like I wasn't really expecting this one to have much fire given this kind of the like how new both of these teams are. I know Vegas is always in the playoffs since they come in, but um, friend of the show, Gavin was telling me that he's been pretty dialed in on this series. Lots of exciting talent in it. I I do think Vegas is still going to find a way to come through, given all the star power on that team and the fact that they've been there so many times. But once again, goaltending's kind of coming to show how important it is. Carter Hart letting in 4 goals on 8 shots, I believe, in his last start. So that is definitely not going to get it done. If they can't figure that out, they're in for probably a pretty quick series. But overall, it's nice to see some new teams getting into the playoffs this year. Like, what is it? I think four teams in the playoffs this year weren't in there last year, and I think or five with Buffalo. Yeah,
Five.
anyways. Yeah, five. Buffalo, Utah,
One, two,
Anaheim, Pittsburgh, Philly.
six.
Damn.
Six? Yeah, six. Because both Pittsburgh, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
both Boston and Buffalo, and then Utah and Anaheim. So six
Yeah.
new teams.
So that's nice to see because I think the last couple of years it's kind of been the same old dogs, getting in there and making noise. So it's always nice when you get some new blood. Yeah, I'll
I'm
definitely have
just,
to tune in to the
you know,
next
I'm just
of these.
thankful. I'm thankful that there's no Edmonton LA matchup this year.
Dude, so bad. There was still a chance go down to like the last game of the season that it could happen at like a 20% chance, and I was like, please, Gary, no.
But yeah, I mean, I've watched a bit of the Vegas Utah series. I haven't watched it all the way through. Karel Vejmelka's looking really solid. And just to speak to your point of goaltending again, I think that's going to be a common trend throughout this episode. But I believe he had the most wins in the regular season in the National Hockey League, and that's just due to Utah not really having a serviceable backup, so they played him a lot. But he looked good. The Czech goaltending is coming out. They're having their coming out party. Canada could take a page out of their book on how to develop young goalies. But this series, first of all, I watched game three, and the first playoff game ever in the Delta Center, that place was rocking. That atmosphere in there was fantastic. You can tell that the fans in Salt Lake have been waiting for a team. It must be electric to have that feeling as a player coming out to that. I love what they've done with their gimmicks, whatever they got with the mammoth looking Zamboni. That's a pretty fun touch. Um, as far as the actual play goes, we talked about the physicality, and I'm sure maybe if you haven't watched these series, I'm sure you've seen clips, but this is low key getting heated. It's getting personal. You got guys like Nick Dowd on one end, Liam O'Brien on the other. They're going at each other. This has been a really fun physical series to watch. The main reason I picked Utah is yes, Vegas was undefeated going into this series under John Tortorella. However, despite being the Pacific Division winners, Vegas actually came into the playoffs with a losing record overall. And so I am not they were a clear beneficiary of the loser points in overtime. And so I am not hopping on the train of any team that loses more than they win, despite all the playoff experience Vegas has. And honestly, with the way the series goes, I think I'm more confident in Utah coming out of this one than I would be with Anaheim coming out of Edmonton. They're both trending in the direction I thought so far, but we'll see how it goes. It's been entertaining hockey, and in moving forward, I'm gonna try and catch games from both of these series.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there. The Pacific Division this year, if nothing's gonna tell Gary Bettman how dumb this playoff format is, I think the fact that I believe LA had a losing record overall, Vegas had a losing record overall. These guys are making the playoffs over teams in the Central that have more points. It just makes no sense.
LA did claim you're correct. I believe LA claimed the largest amount of loser points. Vegas was second. Vegas, I think, um, also, I want to say Vegas led the league in the least or the most amount of minutes trailing a game, the most amount of minutes without leading a game, which is insane. They won their division with that low percentage minutes of leading hockey games. Because generally, if you get the first goal in the game, it puts you in a pretty good spot, and Vegas does not like to do that.
Yeah, you wanna go to the other two Western series?
Yeah, let's go to Colorado, LA first. I had Colorado, as did I think everyone in the history of time. This is going to be a really short one for me. The scoreline is kind of how I expected it to go. LA, we know, has that playoff experience, but they're nowhere near the depth of Colorado, and especially with Scott Wedgwood having the year that he's having. I I do believe in the President's Trophy curse. I've been burned by it too many times, picking the President's Trophy winner to win the Stanley Cup and them crashing out. For example, the Boston year when they lost in the first round of Florida, I had Boston is the winner in my bracket. So I did not pick Colorado to win the Stanley Cup this year. However, I did pick them very handedly to have them advance past LA. I had Colorado in four, and that is the direction it's trending. And that's all I really got to say on this one.
This will be a quick one for me as well. I've watched a single period of this series, and that was more than enough. I think pretty boring. I don't even think they had to play the games really in this series. Um, might be Anze Kopitar's final NHL game tonight. They're playing tonight, I believe, right?
I can find
Yeah,
out. Ethan says yes. I agree
yeah.
with Ethan.
So, sayonara to Anze Kopitar. Hell of a career, hell of a run. Unfortunately, play on like the most boring team ever the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm pretty ready for them to no longer be in the playoffs. So, like you were saying, Colorado's just way deeper overall. Their goaltending has been solidified since the end of last year, and yeah, when you're seeing Kale McCarr just walk in the blue line like that, absolute laser beams from the point, they just got nothing to compete with it. So.
I wonder how much this is going to hurt Colorado in the next series. Because, yeah, they're going into it way more rested than whichever team they're going to face. And they're also not going to be battle tested. I don't want to say that any playoff game in the National Hockey League is an easy game, but Colorado's essentially having the easiest path to the next rounds, and I wonder if they're going to come out a little flat-footed and a little behind the gun in game one of round two against one of Minnesota, Dallas, who have had to fight tooth and nail through this series.
That's a good point. I kind of look at it the other way though. Colorado as a team, I mean, I think one of the reasons that the President's Trophy winners struggle is when you've kind of clinched playoffs by like late December, early January, it's kind of hard to keep your level up here for the rest of the season to cruise. So Colorado sort of limped into the playoffs. I kind of wonder if maybe um, it's a bit of a blessing that they got to play a team like LA in the first round. Series will be like a good tune-up for them and sort of get the rust off and get back into playing meaningful games so that when they come up against either Dallas or Minnesota, they're able to sort of bring their level back up to that. But we'll see. I guess only time will tell.
Yeah, and going into the Dallas Minnesota series, the last series in the West that we haven't talked about, this is the series I looked at where both teams I think are probably the two strongest cup contenders from the West. And I went with Dallas in this one. First of all, just based on experience, they have showcased the ability to get out of the first rounds. And the other thing too is just Minnesota center depth really concerns me still. And with how physical these playoffs have been, including the Dallas Minnesota series, it's a tough situation to be in if somebody goes down and somebody's hurt. That being said, like both teams, their defense has been unreal. Wallstead has been really good in nets. Onger's been really good in nets. Even looking at, I hate on this guy all the time, but watching Tyler Myers and Leon Bichelle, that might be the tallest pairing of defensemen in NHL history. Those guys look like Andre the Giant out there. Tyler Myers skates like Andre the Giant sometimes, but man, I would not want to go into the corner against those guys.
Hey, Tyler Myers in the right role, man. Serviceable player. Serviceable player. I also chose Dallas in this series, admittedly with a ton of personal bias because the worse Minnesota does, the better the Vancouver Canucks first round pick for them is going to turn out to be. So I would really, really like to see Dallas close this one out. Definitely a bummer. Matt Boldy scoring that overtime winner last night. He's so good, man. The fact that him and Caulfield went in the teens in that draft is absolutely absurd looking back at it. But um, yeah, it's been a great series. I think it's a crime that this is a first round matchup. As you're saying, would not be shocked if one of these two teams ends up being the Western representative in the finals. And Gary Bettman's reasoning, one of his reasons, anyways, when he was asked recently about this playoff format that he likes, is that it gives us such a great first round. I mean, yeah, awesome, but you know what? I'd kind of rather a great second round, third round, and finals than an electric first round. And I don't even think it's true because there's a number of series like we were talking about, Colorado, LA, that's fucking boring. Carolina, Ottawa, boring. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia wasn't expecting to be boring. It's, getting a little better,
Yeah.
but
I mean, so that being said, both those series, Colorado, LA, and Carolina, Ottawa, would have happened regardless of the playoff format because
okay,
they were both 1 versus 8. They were
sure.
the conference winners versus the second
Yeah,
wild card.
fair. Point still stands though in Dallas, Minnesota. It's bullshit. That's a first round series.
I
But
agree with
you're
you.
right.
I
You're
think
right.
if you take these 8 teams and you just throw them on paper and you say what are the two best teams, like if it was a different playoff format, I think Dallas and Minnesota would be my conference final prediction. And then just the star power up front, like you mentioned, Matt Boldy, the way Kaprizov skates and the way he can move the puck and draw defenders into him. There's a chance it didn't go in. It almost went in, or I think it did go in and it was called back for goalie interference. But Kaprizov just shovels the puck. He goes behind the goal, draws all the defenders to him, shovels the puck in front of the net. It deflects off of Hartman. Onger kind of fumbles it. Heiskanen gets bumped into the net. They called it off either way, but just his ability to create space for his teammates is unreal, and so many teams don't have that, and that is a huge asset offensively. Quinn Hughes, of course, on the power play, insane. Even 5-on-5, just the way he skates, I'm always amazed by that. Brock Faber's looked really good in this series. Brock Faber looked like he's never played a game of hockey in his life last year against Vegas. And now in this series, he looks like a top tier all star elite defenseman that he is. And, maybe part of that is Quinn Hughes taking the offensive burden off of him, and he can play a little bit more defensively, which is I think is his natural playing style. And it takes a little bit of the pressure off of him, so I'm sure that helps. So even though I picked Dallas, I do think Minnesota looks really good. It's a tight series. I expected it to be a tight series. Um, you know, you look at how game one started, and I don't think game one was a true test because I think back to last year. I believe, and someone can verify this and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Dallas lost game one to Colorado 6-1 or 5-1 last year. And they went on to win that series, and then they went on to demolish Winnipeg with the help of playoff Hellebuck and Chris Rooney. But Dallas, I think, is a team that gets better the longer the series goes. They have a lot of that experience. The only thing I will say about Dallas is I don't know what Glenn Gullitson's uh, playoff tactics are like deeper into a series. Because if I'm correct, he's never been out of the first round before. So we'll
Okay.
see. We'll see how Glenn Gullitson rolls in that role. Ethan just brought it up. Thank you, Ethan. It was 5-1. So yeah, they came back to win that series against Colorado. I still feel good about Dallas in this, but if this goes to seven, A, I wouldn't be surprised. And B, I want this to go to seven. I want as much of this series as possible. Give me 7 games. Give me 7 games triple OT.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. As long as this series can go, I'll watch it. Yeah, I was thinking about bringing in a guy like Quinn Hughes. Not only are you getting to add his talent and his quality to the roster, but it kind of makes everybody around him better as well by, like you're saying, taking off some of the offensive burden and just creating way more space. And the breakouts are way easier. Offensive zone, you're covering pucks a lot easier, keeping it in the blue line, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I agree. I think Dallas is gonna find a way to do it, but I it's tough to predict at this point, man, because both these teams are just juggernauts.
Yeah, just wrapping up the West, what a treat, I guess, Dallas and Minnesota is in the first rounds. For those who don't know, which I guess most of our listeners wouldn't, because as we said, we didn't do a playoff preview. I do have Dallas selected as my Stanley Cup champion prediction for this year. I just think they've come close so many times. They've kind of just been beat by McDavid a bunch of times, and I don't think they're going to have to deal with McDavid this year. And just the talent up and down that lineup is pretty deep. So I do think they can get there. Traditionally, I think you need a little bit of a short series to catch your breath if you're going to win the Stanley Cup. You don't want to grind through three game sevens. So, the path I kind of see for them is they may have another hard fought series against Colorado, but once they play whichever team comes out of the other side of the bracket, that should be a pretty mismatched conference final.
Yeah. I okay. Admittedly, I did not do a bracket this year. I just ran out of time. So I didn't really go through all the different machinations and see who I thought would come out on top. I don't re I think I want Buffalo to win. They're kind
Okay,
of
that's
like
who
the
you want
Canucks.
to win, but do you think they'll win?
I think they've got a shot. If Dallas can get out of the gauntlet, which is going to be their path, then yeah, I could see them winning as well. But I do think that's just so hard. Like having to go through Minnesota and then Colorado after that, whichever one of those two teams gets through is going to be pretty banged up. I do think Buffalo's got a bit of a lighter pathway to get there. I honestly after the first round series, Carolina Ottawa though, I could definitely see Carolina going to. If Frederick Anderson's going to play like that for the entirety of the playoffs, then the way they play, they don't have to go up against Florida this year in the conference finals, which has kind of been their kryptonite. So I could definitely see Carolina going on a run too. Um,
Which one do you want to start with, Carolina, or do you want to start with Buffalo? Which one should we start there? Or one of the other
let's
two
go.
series. You pick which
Let's
series we start with for the East.
let's go top down. We'll do Buffalo Boston because they're currently engaged in
Yeah,
combat.
I got the TV on behind me. At the time of recording, it's 6-0 for Buffalo. And let me just say one thing here is when we did our regular season predictions, our regular season standing predictions. We did that episode in September, and Jude and I we made our predictions, but we're not going to mention the guest who was on. But Jude and I both did our predictions, and we had we had what we said was our hot take predictions for the NHL season. What was our hot take prediction? So my hot take prediction for the NHL season was that Utah would make the playoffs. They made it. It ended up coming true. Jude's hot take prediction was that Macklin Celebrini would make Team Canada's Olympic team. That ended up coming true. Neither of us had Buffalo in the playoffs. We're not going to be right 100% of the time. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? However,
Yeah.
however, I was just talking about this off air with Ethan. I don't know how much of this is Buffalo's that much insanely better than Boston because of who they are as a team, or if it's more so Boston just hasn't shown up. Because Boston has looked like ass this series. And like coming to this game, th just even this game, it is pivotal. It is in Boston. They gave up 19 shots in the first period. They have played so bad this series, and I was expecting way more from them. After the season they had last season, finishing with one of the worst records in the league, I didn't think they'd be back here. They made it on the backs of their star players, and they have looked like shit. They're playing like a team that is just happy to be there, and they really shouldn't be. They should be a little bit more balls to the wall, pedal to the metal. I expect them to be bigger, more physical, faster than they have been. I've been really disappointed in the Boston Bruins. That being said, I do have to give credit to Buffalo because, like I mentioned, I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. I definitely didn't think they'd be winning their division. Life is full of surprises. I wonder how much of a harder time they're going to have against either Montreal or Tampa Bay compared to how good they look against Boston here.
Yeah, I was looking at this one from a different lens. Buffalo after the season, they had best team in the league after November. They just absolutely rolled. And Boston, yeah, I just think there's a pretty big talent disparity, to be honest, as you go through the lineups here. In Boston, I mean, everybody's clicking. I think that's the difference. Like all year, a lot of the guys are having career seasons. Their confidence is at an all-time high. And yeah, I kind of expected this one to be pretty short. I was a little surprised going like when that first game was going on and Boston was up in the third period. I was like, really, Buffalo, first playoff home game in 14 years or whatever. This is how you come out, and then all of a sudden they pull a rabbit out of their ass and find a way to get it done. And I think something like that's pretty galvanizing because now anytime you're going into a third period down, you're like, well, whatever, we'll come back, it's fine. And that belief has strong power. So. This one's pretty embarrassing for Boston, though. In Boston, down 6-0 to go down 3-1 in the series. That's ugh.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, how much of this is more so on Boston? It's interesting you mentioned the rosters because, like, I honestly don't think that on paper, Buffalo has that much of a better roster than Boston, if a better roster at all. Like, and they didn't really make many moves to improve their roster. Obviously, they picked up a couple of defensemen, one of them being Winnipeg Jets legend Logan Stanley, who's had 9 times the production of his previous career high this season. So a fun fact about Logan Stanley there. Um, One thing you mentioned though is the atmosphere in Buffalo, kind of the same thing that we talked about with Utah that will help them. Having it the first game in the Delta Center. I believe Buffalo's arena is KeyBank Arena. I think that's the name of it. This is essentially like the first playoff game in KeyBank Arena. Like it has been almost a generation of people that have been born since the last Buffalo playoff game. Like I think like we're a couple years away from some teenage pregnancies seeing Buffalo Sabres fans come into this world after their last playoff game.
Yeah, yeah, a couple more years, and the kids literally could have been born and gone all the way through high school and graduated without seeing their fucking team in a playoff series. But hey, they got it done. They got it done this year. It's interesting because I know they won the 3 games prior to Kevin Adams getting fired, but he's got to be just stewing right now, man. Seeing what happened after he got canned, like this team he put together after years of pain, just finally seems like to figure it out and go for a run. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe the talent disparity is not huge between these teams, but I do think the way Buffalo's been working this year, combined with the absolute weapons they have, I mean, their defensive left side is just insane. With Dolly and Byram and Power, they're all young, healthy coming in, and I don't know. I could see Buffalo doing some damage. I think if I had to pick, I think it's going to be Carolina coming out of the East, but. Um, Yeah, we'll see. I hope Buffalo makes it far because they're kind of like the Canucks brethren in pain. Came into the league the same year and both just been abysmal franchises. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily share the same connection to Buffalo. For me, I'm not as convinced as you. Like, I'm still questioning, like, are these guys legit when it comes to playoff time? And I don't think we're going to know that until the next round. If they can hang with Tampa and Montreal, two teams that have been to Cup finals recently, um, two teams that have that playoff experience, have a little bit more of that top end talent than Boston. Tampa obviously has won cups. Um, the advantage that Buffalo may or may not have is they're probably not going to be as banged up as Tampa or Montreal going into the next round because Boston's playing like a bunch of bitches that don't want to be there. I'm calling you out, Boston Bruins players. However, I struggle to see a path where Buffalo makes it out of the next round. I just think the elite talent and the depth and the experience of either Tampa or Montreal will be victorious over the lack of experience of the Buffalo Sabres. The other thing I want to say is you talked about the systems and how things seem to change after the firing of Kevin Adams. And I need to give full credit to this guy because I was sure he was going to be fired like 2 weeks into the season. I don't know what's going on, but people are buying into Lindy Ruff's system, and this is insane to me because he has already been fired from the Buffalo Sabres before. Like this is not his first run in Buffalo. He was fired during the stretch where they didn't make the playoffs. Like it's insane to me that they brought him back. I was convinced that they just brought him back as a scapegoat, so they had someone to fire. Um, in case it ever
When it didn't
came
go
down
well.
to that. I did not expect it to be Kevin Adams, but full credit to Lindy Ruff because he is getting buy-in stronger than we've ever seen before in Buffalo. Maybe the coach of the year for me. I know a lot of people are saying Dan Muse. I think Lindy Ruff has done a phenomenal job. Whether they win the cup this year or whether they lose in the second round, I need to give full credit to Lindy Ruff because I gave him some hate and boy did he took it personally and he has responded and responded well.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Especially like the way they started the season, being able to turn it around in the middle of the year to the extent that they did, I think it's impressive for sure.
And then we go south or north, depending on which team is hosting the games. Montreal Tampa. What a fun series this has been.
Yeah.
3 games, 3 overtime winners. People are running around trying to kill each other. Josh Anderson's hitting people from behind. He's getting hit from behind. Guys are running around with tempers. This is this is what playoff hockey is all about. What a great series.
Yeah, this has probably been my favorite one so far. I've been able to watch most of all these games. Um, I saw it's the eighth series in the history of the league to have all 3 games go to overtime to start. So it's a fun little tidbit. But yeah, Montreal, what a squad, man. They are insane. They're high flying. They've got enough grit. Obviously, their power play is just ridiculous. Slavkovsky's playing out of his mind. He did get absolutely dummied by Brandon Hagel, who's 40 pounds lighter than him. But, skill guy, skill guy. So I applaud him for even standing in there. But yeah, this one's great. I would definitely not mind seeing this one go to 7 as well. I think it's very likely given how even both these teams are. Tampa can definitely go pound for pound with them in terms of skill. So I think really it's just going to come down to, as it does a lot of the time, who's able to make the big plays in the big moments. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few more overtimes, and when that's the case, yeah, it's really just about capitalizing on uh, on every chance you get. So yeah, I would like to see Montreal go farther. My dad's childhood team, and uh, I think they have as good a shot of any team has recently to maybe end this Canadian curse.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And the first point I just want to make is Lane Hudson is looking like a Norris Trophy defenseman. He's been unreal. Got the overtime winner. You already mentioned Slavkovsky. I'm just going to go back to Josh Anderson and talk about him aside from the physical play. What a catalyst he's been to this series. You think of all that top end talent on Montreal with Hudson and Slavkovsky, Suzuki, Caulfield, and for me, I think Josh Anderson. I know it's way too early to tell because we have no clue who's going to be in the Stanley Cup Finals, but Josh Anderson might be throwing his name in the ring for early Conn Smythe favorite here. Um, and the other thing I'll say to this series, I talk about goaltending a lot, but we knew Andrei Vasilevsky was going to be good, and he's playing like playoff Vasilevsky. Jakub Dobeš is hanging in there as well. So great on Jakub Dobeš for answering the bell. He only had 3 previous playoff games under his belt before that, so good on him. I think going into this series, I did pick Montreal. And full transparency, Montreal is the team I have coming out of the East. I had a Dallas Montreal final. And I think the big reason I've picked that is once again, we just talked about the battle of attrition. Tampa Bay has played a lot of playoff hockey, and they do have an older roster. And I think when I look at Tampa Bay, if you can stay out of the penalty box, you'll have a huge advantage because a lot of their firepower is in their top six. The back end of that roster may be not as strong, but they picked up Bjorkstrand. They picked up Corey Perry. They got some depth additions. They're looking very dangerous. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Nikita Kucherov might be the most complete player I've ever seen in person. Like he is just insane to watch. Pucks on his stick, off his stick. He's always in the right position. He's always controlling the flow of play. Um, Obviously, Tampa has the elite firepower to end the series. I think this is the only one where, like out of both, out of all the series that are close, like with Dallas, Minnesota, for example, I'm like, you know what? I have a feeling Dallas can squeak this out. Tampa, Montreal, I've no clue which way this is going, but I am loving every second of it.
100% agree. 100% agree. I'd prefer Montreal to win it, but I'd be okay with either of these teams coming out, given how good both of them are and how both of them look. So always also rooting for John Cooper a little bit, BC boy. Uh, showing well for the British Columbians out there.
Yeah, I do quite like if Montreal would advance further, not just for my bracket, but also, if we're talking about head coaches, Marty behind Montreal's bench, the longer it goes, the longer I can test out my French accent with Martin Saint-Louis behind the bench.
That sounds so much more Italian than French, but you do you,
How would
I
you
guess.
how would you say it? You do it. How would you say it?
Martin Saint-Louis.
That was good. Yours was better. Yours
Thank
was better.
thank you.
I guess moving on. Carolina versus Ottawa. Carolina, the first team through to the next rounds. We always knew Carolina was going to be competitive. And before we talk about their team as a whole, I just want to say, man, Logan Stankoven likes to show up in the playoffs. 4 goals in 4 games. Uh, maybe more, but I think four game goal streak at least to start the playoffs. And he seems to be a competitor. I remember when we started this podcast last year, as previously mentioned, it was in the second rounds of the playoffs when we had our debut episode. And on the second episode, we spent a lot of time on Logan Stankoven, and he was actually the cover of that episode was Logan Stankoven, and here we are in the first round of the playoffs the next year, and he's just getting it done. What an addition that was for them. Nikolai Ehlers providing some extra firepower. You mentioned Freddie Anderson. Freddie Anderson is looking like a god in net right now. They're not going to have to deal with the Florida Panthers. Carolina might be going all the way here.
I could definitely see it. This series was, I mean, it looks bad when you see a sweep in the first round anytime. It's definitely a bit of an indictment on the Senators. I, I- I mean, they grinded it out this year. It was loud around the Senators all season. Like they were having some Canucks level drama going on in there. It seemed like, but a couple of games went to overtime. Kind of, you can call those a coin toss if you want. No points from Brady Tkachuk in the series. That's brutal. Ottawa's top players definitely did not show up. Their power play looked disgustingly bad, like so inept. Passes were just going all over the place. No movement. I always find that when a power play is not doing well, I find it's because it's really stagnant. There's not a lot of movement, and guys just kind of get stuck in their spots, and it's easy for the penalty kill to sort of lock in, and you have a lot harder time breaking them out of their spots. But yeah, Linus Allmark, I feel bad for him because he was great in this series. His numbers are going to be great. I have no doubt. But unfortunately, the guy in the other crease is probably the only goaltender having a better playoff so far than him, which makes things really, really hard. Carolina is just suffocating, man. They were so fast. They hunt pucks like no team I've seen in the playoffs so far, and they're totally together. They play as a unit. They've always got support around the puck. Stankoven, I'll say it again, probably best player I ever played against. Top three for sure. Can't say I'm surprised to see him having the success he's having in the playoffs. And I wouldn't be surprised if it keeps going because they're gonna have a cakewalk, I think, with whoever makes it out of the last series in the East here.
Just imagine this path for them, right? If you got, I think this is honestly a worst case scenario path because I feel like at this point you're not battle tested. But imagine if you go Ottawa, Philadelphia, Buffalo is your path to the Stanley Cup Finals. Who would have pictured that, right? I'm not
Seriously.
saying that's going to happen, but it could. That's a very real possibility, and
Yeah.
that might be the easiest Cup Finals path in the history of hockey.
Yeah.
I'm sure Carolina and their fans wouldn't be complaining, but that kind of also speaks to what is wrong with this playoff format.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I can if they're gonna win one, I think this is probably the year, given who the competition is looking like it might be for them. Um, but yeah, Ottawa, oof. I don't think they should overreact to this. I mean, like I said, I know they got swept and it looks bad, but it's not like they were blown out of any of these games. They were tight games. I think maybe just some smaller adjustments, and maybe shipping out some of the guys that are sewing division in that locker room might help. But they were so injured too. I mean, Sanderson not being able to play the closeout game, that's always going to hurt. Shabbat broke his hand a couple of weeks ago. He's obviously not at full strength. So
Yeah,
it's always, I was
no, I
just
was
going to
just
say,
gonna
it's always going to be hard to win a series when your top two guys do absolutely nothing the entire time. So
Yeah, and like, look, this is a team that was banged up. They have minimal playoff experience. They're coming in as the eighth seed. Like, I know there's guys picking the upset, and saying that Ottawa, looks like a real contender. I never felt that way on paper. This is a cakewalk for Carolina, and I know the games aren't played on paper. And I do agree that maybe this series was closer than it looks just based on the 4-0. I think they're going to be fine next year. Add some guys if you can in the offseason. Make some moves to boost that culture. I would fully expect Ottawa to be back in the playoffs next year. The interesting thing, though, about the Atlantic Division next year is you should have a healthy Florida Panthers. So you could probably expect the Panthers to make a push for the playoffs, which means one of these teams is falling out of it, Boston. So we'll see how that goes. And the one thing I heard, I only watched full transparency. I only watched game one of this series. Did not watch 2 through 4, but I've heard a lot of complaints about the reffing in this series, and it makes me wonder if Chris Rooney did any of these games.
pretty easy to find out. I know, I'm pretty sure Wes McCauley was doing one of the games when I was watching it. You can always tell because he's got that warrior helmet. Very
Yeah,
iconic for
I,
Wes.
I love Wes. He's so good. He makes it fun. He makes
Yeah.
it fun. Ethan's gonna bring up who the refs were for these games here, and none of them were Chris Rooney. They escaped.
No.
They escaped the curse of Chris Rooney. Moving on to the final series, and boy oh boy, we got some bad blood here. We got Brian Rust. I need to be careful and choose my words carefully here because it is 2026, and a lot of our well, I wouldn't say a lot of our viewers are woke. Most of our viewers are normal people that don't get offended by the smallest comments. Most of our viewers have a good head on their shoulders, but there are a few woke people out there that could easily get offended by my comments. But Brian Rust going and doing some hair pulling is not the most manly thing in the world.
Yeah, this series has been as about as physical as I expected it to be, to the detriment of the Penguins, honestly, I think, because I would imagine that was Philly's game plan going into it. We need to rough these guys up. We need to get under the Stars' skin because Pittsburgh's only chance is their big guns going off and carrying them through. And I think obviously it's been working. Through the first 4 games, Crosby and Malkin, I feel like every time that there's a whistle and they're on the ice, they're in the middle of it, getting into it. And it's playoffs, so you understand them wanting to be involved and it can galvanize a team to a certain extent when your star players are showing they're willing to get in the mix and throw the weight around. But I think they kind of figured out in that fourth game there. Let's leave that to the other guys. I mean, you got to defend yourself if it comes your way, but uh, they weren't going out of their way really to get in scrums and mix it up. And Crosby ends up having 2 points. Letang with a big goal to extend the lead in the third period there. I would like this one to go deeper. If anything, it might be the last run we ever see of Crosby, Malk in the tank. So do I think they're going to be able to come back and pull it off? No, I wouldn't put money on it, but I'd like to see him push it to 6.
Yeah, I think if you look at their let's talk about Czech goalies again. How about this? Goalies from Czechia. Dan Vladar looks out unreal. Unreal in that he had a great regular season too. Philadelphia statistically had the worst goaltending in the regular season last year. They made changes to who they brought in net, and boy, oh boy, that's an unreal payoff for them. We talked about it statistically. The Edmonton Oilers have had the worst goaltending in these playoffs so far. The Pittsburgh Penguins have the second worst goaltending in these playoffs. Who is their
Yeah.
starting goalie?
Who might that
Stuart
be? Who
Skinner. Who
might
did I
that be?
say should have been traded from the Edmonton Oilers at the beginning of the season? Oh, I said Stuart Skinner.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when you do not have two of the top five offensive players in the world on your roster bailing you out when it comes to goal scoring. I think it's really exposed how shit of a goalie Stuart Skinner is. No offense to him. Artur Shilov's getting the net for game five, so we'll see how that goes. He does have a Calder Cup. Obviously, the NHL a little bit different than the AHL playoffs, but he has shown up in big moments. So we'll see. Good on the Flyers though. Like I didn't have either of these teams here. Rick Tockett's systems, I think, are kind of built for the playoffs, so he's probably having a heyday over in Philadelphia. Porter Martone looks unreal. They got the young guys coming to play. We've seen the resurgence of Trevor Zegras. I thought initially this was going to go the other way. I did have Pittsburgh in my bracket only because I think you have a guy like Crosby who's been out of the playoffs for so long. I thought he was just going to take over the series, which to your point, he hasn't really been able to do yet. I'm sure Carlson's hungry for it. He's never won a cup. Letang, Malkin, these guys haven't been back here in a while. But Philadelphia just looks like they've outgunned them. I agree with you. I want this series going on for as long as possible. This could be Sidney Crosby's last playoff series. And we talked about this previously in 2 episodes ago where I said, you know, Sidney Crosby, who knows how much longer he's going to play, whether you're a Penguins fan or not. Watch it. Watch it while you can. Take it in while you can. Appreciate it. Because this gentleman is, in my opinion, a top four NHL player of all time. Well, when does that kind of skill and that kind of career come around? Not very often. And once it's over for good. So watch it while you can. I can't see Pittsburgh making it out in the next game.
Yeah, got to give credit to the Flyers for sure. Tocchet is I miss Tocchet, man. I mean, it can be boring hockey at times, but he gets his teams to play defensively tight, and they do not break from that system. It's very, very clear what everyone's role is, what their job is. Leaves very little room for guessing, which I think helps teams when you don't have, especially that super top end skill. Because Philly, they don't really have anybody that I'd call a superstar. They've got some great players. Like you were saying, Zegras with his resurgence this year, but still, I wouldn't call him a superstar. So the Tocchet system really, really works for that, getting everybody to play as one. I think Philadelphia has just looked a lot faster and a lot hungrier. Their game plan seemingly was to come out there and rough Pittsburgh up and try and drag them into the mud, which is where I think Philadelphia is comfortable living and wants to keep this series. So yeah, definitely got to give credit to them. Dan Vladar did not see him becoming an elite number one goalie.
Dude,
in
I'm telling
in
you,
the
dude,
future, but
goalies from Czechia, they're doing it's like USA, Czechia, right? Leading in the goaltending race.
wow,
In
Russia.
terms of does Russia have young goalies coming in? Like Askarov was meh this year, you know? Like
Well, I
Russia's got
guess
like
I'd
Vasilevsky Bobrovsky, Shesterkin, like, but I feel like
They got
in terms of
Sorokin
their,
too. Might win
yeah,
Vesna.
true, true. I guess in terms of recent development, I don't know how much Russia's pumping out. That's a good point. Like overall, Russia probably has the best goaltending, but they're all, I guess, in the older age bracket.
Right, they're established.
Where's is Jakub Dobesh? Is he Czech as well?
That sounds ridiculously Czech as a name, I would imagine.
There we go. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. You can continue with your point about Dan Vladar. I just want to give flowers to the Czechia development, but
Yeah.
continue.
No, all good. I was just saying, given his recent stops, he's been a bit of a journeyman. He's always been solid in his role wherever he's been, but being a starting goalie for a round one playoff winning team, I mean, putting the cart before the horse a little bit there, but I would be a little shocked if Pittsburgh was able to rattle off four in a row here. So I will call them a round one playoff winning team. Did not see that in Dan Vladar's bingo cards, but good for him. Good for everybody there. I still cheer for Tocchet. I like him. He was probably my favorite Canucks coach that I've seen since Vigneault, just the way he dealt with the media, the way he would explain himself after games. And yeah, I do think the second round's probably the end of the line for them, but they're definitely punching above their weight class. They're ahead of schedule, I think, based on how last year went for them and where everybody thought they were in their development arc before the season started.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned is Philadelphia doesn't have necessarily that like elite superstar player yet. They have a lot of guys that can develop into it that have likely not hit their peak. But as it stands, current day Flyers don't have a Kucherov or a Draisaitl or an Eichel type player. The fortunate thing for them is outside of Crosby, Pittsburgh doesn't either. And they've done a really good job at limiting Crosby's chances. If you take him, if you take away his opportunities and you take away his time and space, you're also going up against an on-par team, if not a lesser team, in terms of their top-end talent. Unfortunately, when they run into the Carolina Hurricanes, Carolina, they do have that top-end talent.
They do
So
in
we'll
spades.
we'll we'll see what the adjustment is like for for Philadelphia when that happens. I'm actually kind of really excited to watch that series just out of pure curiosity to see how well Philadelphia or how poorly Philadelphia handles that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too. They both play fairly similar styles in terms of like how they forecheck and they hunt pucks. I was kind of noticing that from Philadelphia. They just look discernibly faster than Pittsburgh getting to pucks. They're winning a lot of the 50-50 battles and seems like they're really just limiting Pittsburgh's time and space all over the ice, which is being a deterrent to their top end guys. But Carolina's the exact same way, maybe and probably even better at it than Philadelphia is. 'Cause like you're saying, they play that way and then have the skill on top of that where they can, you know, just make things happen off the rush and sort of extend their offensive zone time a lot. So that'll be a
I
good
do
series.
think that I do think there's something to be said about experience as well, and Carolina has been in the playoffs a lot recently. And even you think about the new additions to their team, like the Stankovens, they obviously picked him up last year in the Rantanen trade, like picking up Ehlers. They were guys that were also on the playoffs or also in the playoffs on other teams. So it is a bottomless pit of experience in Carolina versus not a whole lot in Philadelphia. I believe this was Ristolainen's first playoff games uh, this year to put it in perspective.
He was in Buffalo a long time.
Anyways, I think unless there's one more thing I want to add super quick that has nothing to do with playoffs, but is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will be back, I am sure, next week with more playoff discussion. Maybe we'll mix in a little bit of NBA next time because there is a 41-year-old man doing things never before thought possible on a basketball court.
There we go. We can talk about the National Basketball Association. I've not watched any NBA playoffs. Speaking of content, though, the off season is always the toughest time to find content, and we do try and bring guests on the show to fill slots. I'm still hoping we can get Jacob Slipik on the show. He's been supposed to come on the show for like a year now, so we got to lock that down. Get serious about that one. But we had somebody write into our show, and if you write into our social media, I check every single comment, every single message. I believe Ethan checks it as well. So you'll likely get a response from one of us. And we've had some ideas shared with it. We've had the uh, Craig Bensey has written in previously and said compare and contrast the Canucks trajectory not doing a rebuild versus the Chicago Blackhawks trajectory doing maybe a premature one, which I'm sure we can get to in the offseason. I'm sorry, Craig, we have not gone to that yet. This is kind of a fun one. Alex Rolfe writes in, and he says, do an episode ranking the top 20 greatest musical artists of all time.
Damn.
And I would love to do that episode. Alex, we probably have to save that for the off season. There's just too much action going on right now. But the interesting thing about this is Jude is quite the scholar of musical history, whereas I'm not. I know enough that I can make that list, but I haven't done it into a deep dive in the history of music or what stemmed from the blues
Right.
or who's got writing credits on all these famous songs. So it would be very interesting because I can put together, I think, a list that I can make a competitive argument for. But I'm sure after the first two artists, Jude will be raising some eyebrows at me. And and
Oh yeah.
and I guarantee you my one and two are also going to be on your list. They may not be your one and two, but I'm like, we're okay with that. After that, jury's out. I think
Right.
that'd be a really fun episode to do. So I just want to say, Alex, thank you for submitting that. It will likely happen in the off season, and I also wanted to make it known to Jude as well, so he's got a little bit of time to think about it.
Yeah, no, shout out Alex, another friend of the show. I'm sure he can come on one day if he wants to. That's a good idea though. I'll be excited to do that. I do think we should maybe have some caveats like should we put a limit on how far we go back? Like are we including like the entirety of music history or are we going more like 20th century onward? Like from the advent of recording in like the 19 sort of 30s and onward?
My list would not go further back than the 50s.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
only reason I say we can get into that later. I know we only have 1 minute left. Alex, maybe you want to come on and do that episode with us. We can talk about that off camera. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. We can figure out the specifics later on.
Cool. Okay, sounds good.
Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. Give us your thoughts on the playoffs and how they have gone so far. And always feel free to write us in. There's proof that we check everything you send us.
Yeah. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.